forgotten today. Many Muslims live on the shell of their religion. They perform their prayers 5 times a day. Between their 2 ears, there's a vacuum filled by non-Islamic ideas. And that's the great crisis that the whole Islamic intellectual life faces. And Sufism has had a lot to do with that, with providing answers over the centuries. If you were the most intelligent Muslim living in, let's say, Nigeria 500 years ago, was then Nigeria, and had the question, well, what is the relation of cause and effect? How did the world come into being? What is the origin of time? Where am I going to go after death? Or what do I do? And so forth and so on. These existential, profound questions. As if you are the most intelligent, but the ordinary people are satisfied with the answers given through faith in the Sharia, which is a great blessing from heaven. But God has also created human beings who have inquisitive minds, who ask for the whys of things. Every society has had them. With Sufism have always provided the answer to those whys. And it's only since the late 19th century when, through the influence of modernism, certain people began to criticize Sufism as being the equivalent of laziness and so forth, and all that went on, and still goes on, that the answer to these questions began to be sought elsewhere. We have today in the Islamic world, besides traditional Islam in which Sufism is strong, we have 2 tendencies which in fact govern almost all the governments in the Islamic world, very few exceptions. One is the modernist tendency, which opposes Sufism and doctrinal Sufism by wanting to get the answer to these basic questions from John Locke and Voltaire and Hume and so forth and so on, and say we're modernist Muslims. Of course, they're also already outdated in the West, but anyway, we're always one step behind. Now we're trying to learn about Derrida and postmodernism. That's now gone out of fashion. The fashions and philosophy in the West change almost as rapidly as Pierre Cardin's fashions in the fall in Paris. Just a little bit more slowly, not every year, about every 3 years. And the other are the so-called fundamentalists, or who said, don't even ask these questions. Don't ask these whys. So these are 2 powerful forces, which in fact are united in so many ways. They're 2 sides of the same coin, especially in their opposition to the sense of beauty in Islam, to all that is beautiful, to Islamic art, to Islamic poetry, and to Sufism, which was the breathing reality, the spirit that has produced so much beauty in the Islamic world. So in some humble way, this book tries to provide another way of looking at the reality of life itself, without being dogmatic that Sufism is the only way. I've made that very clear. All my life I've been involved with this issue of the plurality of religions, of the fact that in the modern world, if we deny the beauty of other religions, we're in danger of losing our own religion. I'm taking the Quranic message of universality of revelation very seriously. The Quran has many references to God having spoken more than once. In this sense, Islam differs very much from Christianity. Christianity is only one Son of God. In Islam, there are many words of God. And all the references that Quran makes to ad-din, religion, are in plural. Deen itself, first of all, is singular, very interesting. There's only one ultimate religion. And that is, under Allah, Islam. But that's Islam, the surrender to God, which included the surrender of Abraham, was also called Muslim. And Christ was called Muslim. And it doesn't mean that how we use the word Muslim in English today, it meant someone's surrender to God. It was Sufism that brought out this universality of truth, more than any other aspect of Sufism. Great Islamic scholars who were not Sufis wrote about it. Some books of Kalam, they discuss different schools of religion, even outside of Islam. There are references to Hinduism, to Buddhism, not only to Christianity, to Judaism, and Zoroastrianism, in different Islamic texts. But those who brought out the inner meaning of the plurality of religions, the fact that God keeps referring to Rasul, Kutub, messengers and books, not Rasul and Kitab. Kutubihi wa Rasuli comes about over and over again in both Hadith and the Quran. This Sufism has tried to bring out and to always have a universal message. Since this is called the Rumi Forum, we must remember that some of the most universal poetry ever written in human history, in any language, was written by Rumi. And that he had many Christian and Jewish disciples who remained Christian and Jewish. And when he died in Bunya, not only were the Muslim services, that is the prayers of the dead, the Salat al-Janazah, which was performed by Seyyed Hossein, his great friend and son-in-law, or adopted son of Ibn Arabi, but also there were services held in churches and synagogues and so forth and so on. We've had other examples of this in Hindu India, between Hindus and Muslims. The Muslims had many Hindu disciples and were very revered in the Hindu world. And all of that, which is really a story for another day. But I've been concerned all my life with this issue. How does Islam present itself in such a way that every aspect of the form of Islam is respected, and so are the forms of other religions, while claiming there's a universal truth to religion? That is the greatest challenge of our day for people of religion. How to respect Christianity and Christianity's particularities, and understanding of the Trinity and of incarnation and of everything, while it's in many good Muslims, and vice versa. And so this book also breathes with this universal perspective. In this book, in contrast to many of my other writings, I've not written anything directly about the Hindu ideas, the Buddhist ideas, the Christian ideas, but the idea is always there. And as I have said in this book and elsewhere, there are three different ways in which Sufism can play a major role in the world today. One is to follow it, whether one is Muslim or embraces Islam in order to follow the Sufi path. That is for certain view. One is to learn from Sufism one's own spiritual tradition. There's many a Christian who's rediscovered Christian mysticism through reading Sufism, Sufi texts, because this aspect of Islam is so much alive to this day. Whereas Christian mysticism has been eclipsed for several centuries. Thank God it's not died, but it's not so easy to find, for example, the role that the mystical poetry of Rumi plays in Persian and Arabic, Persian and Turkish. Compare that with the role that mystical poets of the English language play in today's America. Well, all one has to do is to ask this question, and you'll find out how Sufism has played and can play this role. And finally, Sufism can play a role in a general way in people's quest for meaning in life, before they even become good Christians or good Jews or good Muslims or anything else. And I hope that this humble book, which I also will be the last book I shall write on Sufism. My God, break my pen so I don't write again. But he doesn't. I keep asking him, but he doesn't do it. Every day I receive requests to write this and write that. But this, I think, will be my last book concerned with the subject, at least in this way. Not books of practical advice for my friends and so on, but a public book. And I hope that this will help on all these three levels. Those who want to participate in Sufism as a living tradition, are willing to dedicate themselves to God and the spiritual life in the Sufi form. Those who belong to other religions, who with the help of this book might find a revival within themselves of their own religious, mystical element of their own religion, spiritual element of their own religion. And finally, those who are searching in general for finding meaning in a life which is so chaotic in our world today, in which so many contradictory things present themselves as the truth, but they really annul each other, and one has to find an island of truth, peace, and tranquility amidst this